Hey, what's going on, everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer Deck Tech, and today we're going to be talking about Golgari Strength from the Fallen. This is a deck that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, which I will be explaining in just a moment here, but as always, at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific card that definitely should have been in this deck that I did not put in it, or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. Okay, so the true inspiration from this deck is as a, I used to play a lot of competitive Magic. I don't really play much anymore, but one thing I always love to do is go back, if I want some background sound or video or whatever, heck, even sometimes when I'm editing these videos, I'll throw in some old Pro Tours. So I was watching Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir the other day, and it was round 6, and Stephen Madden played a really sweet Strength from the Fallen deck. So what it was is it's a deck that basically just fills the graveyard with like Satyr Wayfinders and things like that, and then you play Strength from the Fallen, and it was a really cool deck. He didn't end up winning the match, but he won game 1 by like a landslide. The deck was so cool, and then it got me thinking, I remember when I tried to build a Strength from the Fallen deck about 2 years ago, but it was missing so many pieces. The deck really wasn't that good. So I just kind of scrapped it. But then I got to thinking, like, wait a second. We got a few new cards. We got one new card from Aether Drift and then a card from Duskmourn that would really help this deck. So I'm really excited to talk about Strength from the Fallen. We're playing 4 copies of this absolute powerhouse in this deck. When it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So it's kind of tricky because we want to be filling up our graveyard, but we also want to play enough enchantments so that way we can trigger Strength from the Fallen. And I think I've got a good mix of enchantments and things to fill the graveyard, and in some cases we have some enchantments that do fill the graveyard, which works out really well. But anyways, we're playing 4 copies of Strength of the Fallen. Let's talk about the rest of the cards in this deck. So, graveyard fillers, obviously for Strength of the Fallen to be fully maximized, we need to be able to fill up our graveyard, and we've got plenty of cards that are going to do that. So we're playing 4 copies of Stitcher Supplier. The card is fantastic. It's a 1-drop, mills 3. It's fantastic. We're also playing 4 copies of Overlord of the Baelmerk, which is one of the cards that is really going to help fuel this deck. So obviously it itself is an enchantment. We can play it for 2 mana. It mills us, which is great. Eventually, it'll turn itself into a creature, and then boom, it's just fantastic. So overall, really happy to play this Black Overlord in this deck. But we're also playing 4 copies of Dredger's Insight, the brand new card from Aether Drift. Whenever one or more artifact and or creature cards leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. That's not really the main reason we're playing this. The reason we're playing it is because when this enchantment enters mill 4 cards, you may put an artifact, creature, or land card from among the milled cards into your hand. So it's kind of like a pseudo Satyr Wayfinder for the deck. We're also playing 4 copies of Nyx Weaver. It's another card that allows us to fill up the graveyard. It's an enchantment, which matters with Strength from the Fallen. And also, sometimes the regrowth effect is pretty good. I know I play this card in my Golgari Spiders deck, and I can't tell you how many times that I've actually activated the ability with Nyx Weaver. As we're filling up our graveyard, being able to grab anything back is just absolutely fantastic. So overall, I'm really happy with the entire self-mill package that we're playing here, but we've got more cards to talk about. So this is really just like the rest of the main deck. I really don't know what to call it, so I just call it synergy cards. It's basically all the payoffs that we're playing for milling our graveyard and playing Strength from the Fallen. So I wanted to talk about the enchantments that we're playing in this deck. So we're playing 4 copies of Weaver of Harmony. It's a cheap enchantment creature, but I also really love it with all the different enchantments that we have in play. So obviously Strength of the Fallen we can copy with Weaver of Harmony. Obviously, like any of our mill strategies, so like Overlord, I think it's just really good. And I think it fits this deck really well. I'm also playing 4 copies of Night Howler. This card is just sweet, and it gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in our graveyard. So basically, Strength for the Fallen is just doubling up with Night Howler. So overall, really happy to be playing 4 copies of Night Howler in this deck. I'm also playing 2 copies of Nylea, God of the Hunt. So the reason I'm playing Nylea is I wanted an enchantment that granted trample, and I think Nylea fits the best because it's a creature also as well, so that way, with Strength of the Fallen, it just works out really well. The biggest problem is with the Strength of the Fallen and cards like Night Howler is they get gigantic. They're like 9/9s, 10/10s, 11/11s, but then all of a sudden, we buff like our Stitcher Supplier, we give it like +10/+10, and then they just chump block it, and nothing really happens to that. So I wanted an enchantment that granted trample, and that's why I'm playing Nylea, God of the Hunt in this deck. deck, but just playing 2 copies. But we're also playing 4 copies of Citizen Champion. This card's just sweet. Since we're playing all these enchantments, why not go ahead and play some extra card draw on top of that? So that's why we're playing that. And it's also great because it gets big, and then if we can give it trample, it's just fantastic, and it's going to end the game. And then we're also playing 4 copies of Fatal Push because Fatal Push is Fatal Push, and we're Golgari. So that's why we're playing Fatal Push. But anyways, that's the entire main board except for the lands, which the land base is going to be relatively straightforward here. There is one spicy land that we're playing in this deck that will help trigger Strength of the Fallen very easily, and that card is Valgavoth's Lair. It is an enchantment. It just says whenever an enchantment enters. You don't have to cast it or anything like that. So if we play a late game Valgavoth's Lair, it helps trigger Strength from the Fallen, which is really, really sweet. But we're also playing 4 copies of Blooming Marsh, 4 copies of Overgrown Tomb, and 4 copies of Darkboar Pathway as our main dual lands. Obviously, we're playing a Boseiju and a Takenuma. Takenuma obviously is really nice in this deck, being able to mill ourselves a little bit more. And when we do bring back a creature to our hand, it also does help trigger the 1 enchantment that helps us gain a life. Not that that's going to happen very often. But then rounding out our lands, we're playing 2 copies of Hive of the Eye Tyrant, 1 basic forest, and 1 basic swamp. And as our spicy basic land of the day. So I want to change this this part of the video up a little bit. I know usually I just pick a basic land and like whatever. I decided I wanted to start picking specific artists. And it worked out that Rob Alexander was, did the Theros art already. So it fits the deck, Strength of the Fallen, it's on Theros, whatever. It fits already. But the Overgrown Tomb was also done by Rob Alexander. So now with this section, I think I'm going to start picking artists that did specific basic lands. But anyways, I love both of these. I love the Theros artwork in general. I know when I used to open Theros packs back in the day, I always kept the basic lands from that, just because I've always thought the art was really, really nice. So anyways, I'm rambling on too much about basic lands. Let's go and hop into the rest of the deck here. So the sideboard. Again, if you're new to the channel here, I always love to mention with the sideboard, if you build this deck and you want to change the sideboard up, go ahead and do that. This is just the general guide of what I would personally play in the sideboard. If you feel like you want to go ahead and change things up, feel free to go ahead and do so. Okay, so let's hop into the rest of the video here, or the rest of the sideboard. Okay, so we're playing 4 copies of Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is just fantastic. We're in Golgari. Why wouldn't we play it? We're also playing 2 copies of Terra Sunder. There's a lot of really good enchantments floating around right now. I think it just makes sense to just play Terra Sunder. For 4 mana, you can exile anything, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, why not just go ahead and play Terra Sunder? We're also playing 3 copies of Sheoldred's Edict. I wanted like a Doomblade-esque effect in this deck, and I decided to play Sheoldred's Edict. I wanted to play it over just a regular Doomblade, though, just because of, like all the Rakdos Transmogrify decks, or, sometimes it's really hard to pick apart those creatures, so that's why I'm playing Sheoldred's Edict as opposed to the other ones. But I'm also playing 2 copies of Path of Peril. I wanted a cheap board wipe, and that's why I chose Path of Peril. There's a number of different ones you could play. I just thought Path of Peril was slightly a little bit better, but it's really up to you for the most part. But we're also playing 4 copies of Leyline of the Void. The cool thing with Leyline of the Void is it's also great in our deck because it's an enchantment. So hypothetically late game, not that we want to be playing our Leyline of the Voids, on turn 4, 5, 6 or whatever, but at the very least, if we draw it, it's not completely irrelevant in our deck because of Strength of the Fallen. So, I mean, worst case scenario, like, it triggers our stuff and then buffs our creatures. I don't know. It's just kind of funny how, sometimes those accidental sideboard cards actually work really, really well in our deck. But anyways, the last thing we have to talk about here is the budget options for this deck. So obviously playing the budget dual lands, and I feel like that's really important in a deck like this just because typically Golgari tends to have some of the more pricier lands in the format. We can also swap out the Overlord of the Baelmerk, but I'm just letting you know the card is so good in this deck. I mean, if you have them, play them. If it's too pricey for you, feel free to go ahead and swap it out. I want to say that I swapped them out for just Satyr Wayfinders. It's not an enchantment, but it does fill up our graveyard for only 2 mana. The current list as it's constructed right now is $356 US, mostly because a playset of Overlords is going to be like $120 US. It's really the main reason the deck is pricey. You take that out, it's actually a pretty affordable deck. I was able to get the budget list down to $89 US, but the one thing I want to mention is, typically with my budget lists, I try to get them down to around the $50 or cheaper range, but I decided to keep in some of the pricier cards. Like, for instance, like Nylea's, they go for like about $10, $11 US a piece, but the card is just so good in the deck, I kept it in. If you want to switch it out for like Garruk's Uprising to still be an enchantment that gives trample, you can do that. But I really wanted to keep the Nylea in. I really didn't change up a lot of the sideboard cards other than Thoughtseize. Like, if you just want a Doomblade effect, you can play, you know, like, obviously not literal actual Doomblade, but you can play, like, a Shoot the Sheriff, or you can play, you know, like a Bitter Triumph or something like that. But I decided to just keep in the Shieldred's Edict just because of how flexible they are. So yeah, you can even go a little bit cheaper if you really wanted to with this deck. But overall, it was so fun to make this deck. I've been wanting to make a Strength of the Fallen deck for years, and I'm really happy that I was able to do so. So definitely let me know in the comment section below if you built this deck or built something close to it. Have you ever cast Strength of the Fallen? How many people on this channel have actually cast a Strength from the Fallen? My guess is probably not that many. I also don't even know if the card is legal on Arena. It might even be legal on Arena. So that's kind of unfortunate if you're looking to play this online. But anyways, that's the entire video here. Thanks so much for watching. But we gotta hop into the outro here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Sermanoki, Nightred3, and Michael D, who is our premium channel member. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 US a month, and you gain access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane, thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.